Hi, everybody. My name is Katarina. I'm an Akashic Record reader, a channeler, as well as an energy practitioner, and I'm here to talk about the new moon on June 25th at 5:31 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, this is a really exciting new moon because one, it's in Cancer, and this is around the time that the transition of Cancer is in full swing. And for those who are cancers and those who connect with cancers and have cancers in their chart, astrological chart, this is going to touch us more personally. As somebody who has both Cancer and Leo in my chart due to the day of my birthday, I feel a lot of resonance with this, as well as I'm tapping into the collective experience of the new moon. As I like to remind those, the new moon is often for new beginnings, things we want to call in, plant seeds we want to plant, and full moons are often the actualization of such seeds that we planted. So, first thing I want to touch upon is the emotional side of Cancer. Cancers are often seen as very emotional, in tune with their emotions. Often they say sometimes cancers are too emotional for their own good because they feel so deeply. They're deeply empathic, and therefore they may at times struggle to understand who they are outside of the people that they love, outside of the people that they support. Often cancers are found in jobs where they help others, where it's a therapist, where you're working for a nonprofit, where you just sit down and really help people through your communication. Often Cancerians have really deep abilities to communicate. And I would be curious to see if you have any Cancer in your chart, even if it's not your sun sign, but maybe you have Cancer in your Jupiter or your Gemini or your Venus, and that does affect you in some way and the way that you present to others and your values. So, Cancer is a lot about the emotional being, our emotional being, because we have our emotions, we have our body, we have our spirit. So, and we have our mind, of course. So, this new moon is a lot about understanding how do emotions affect us and how do we portray our emotions. For example, if you are somebody who tends to really stuff down their emotions and suppress them because you always want to be the strong person in your family, in your relationship dynamic, in your work, it is really important that during this time you start to do a lot of introspection and understand how what is your relationship to your emotions, is the best way to question where exactly you are. Another example is if you let your emotions run the show, if your emotions get so overwhelming that you do not really consider other people's emotions, or you tend to shut down without letting others in. And this is to be looked at in a form of non judgment, in a way that we're just seeing and being honest with ourselves. I'm being really called to talk about tools we can use during this Cancerian new moon because there is a big newness about it. There's almost like this newborn energy about this new moon that's going to feel really raw and almost feel like you need a little bit of protection because you're going to feel very vulnerable during this time. So, I'll go in order, I guess, in category, I should say. Crystals, in terms of crystals to use during this time to work with, I see people grabbing a piece of that crystal and going outside and meditating with it, or sitting with that energy and just asking it to what messages it has for you, what feelings it can invoke in you that you need. One of those is apotholite. I see apotholite as being really helpful because apophyllite helps us connect to the angelic realms. It helps us connect to a lighter, more healing energy. And when we are very harsh with ourselves in nature, when we tend to find it easier to judge others as opposed to being kind to others, apophyllite calls in a soft energy which gives us permission to no longer be so harsh and to no longer see things as black or white because we have so much gray in our lives. The gray is where the magic often happens, and the gray is where we can really grow. So, apophyllite is such a good stone for this new moon. Then I would say ruby zoisite is going to be really helpful for you because I see that there are some levels of grief or mourning that may come up during this time that you're just processing, whether it's from a previous event or whether it's something that you're actively going through. Ruby zoisite helps with emotional healing and it helps draw out that sorrow so you can feel like you can find outlets to release. So Ruby and Zoisite is going to take you on a journey and take you to places where you feel like you can really move through your body, whether that's going and on a trail walk or even finding ways to move, whether that's dancing, whether that's doing yoga, whether that's just meditative stretching and understanding where in your body you're holding that emotion and why is it coming up for you the way that it is. The third crystal I feel is going to be really beneficial during this time is rainbow or spiderweb or snowflake obsidian. I'm seeing snowflake obsidian as I'm saying that snowflake obsidian is going to be really beneficial during this time because for those who are aware of what snowflake obsidian looks like, to me, it represents the duality of light and dark and being in harmony with our yin and our yang, our light and our dark, and understanding that without one, we wouldn't value the other, and without the other, we wouldn't understand and appreciate the light within us. So, getting in harmony with ourselves and also creating a high frequency protection barrier within us because we may feel like we want to give away our energy, we want to give away our power. We almost want to be addicted to the exhaustion that we feel at times when we give too much because Cancerian has that shadow within itself. Cancers have that shadow within themselves. So, rainbow snowflake obsidian in particular is going to be very beneficial for you. And if you have regular obsidian, which is the more popular, well known one, that is completely okay and you can still work with it, but I'm seeing strongly snowflake obsidian is going to be really beneficial for this new moon. So those are the three crystals I recommend: apophyllite, ruby zoisite, and snowflake obsidian for this new moon. I also see, as I was saying, movement is going to be really sacred during this time. Movement is always such a good thing to put in our everyday routine, but intentional movement, whereas say you're that day of the new moon you decide to clean or pick up the house a little, you can be intentional with that, saying, as I clean the house, it represents me cleaning the emotional clutter I may have in my body and my energy. And you can also even find a little extra time to go to a class or sign up for a class that day or even do something on YouTube. There are plenty of yoga and meditations and stretches that sometimes there people do for new moons and full moons. And these are intentional ways to understand and to take care of yourself because often when we feel like we can't take control of our lives, when we feel helpless, it's because we have that thought processes within us that is making us feel like we are the victim to our circumstances, when in reality we can be proactive about what may come up for us during this time. And because it's so close to the summer solstice, you may start to feel some of these emotional aspects by Monday, the Monday before the new moon, and leading up to Friday. So, Monday through Friday of the week of the new moon, there may be a lot of active energy within you. I also see that the spine is going to be really important during this time because the spine deeply connects to setting boundaries, to standing up for ourselves. Cancers have a shadow within them to be people pleasers. And when we are people pleasers, we tend to give away our power. And the spine, often spiritual meaning for those who have scoliosis, is that we tend to bend over backwards for others. We tend to not honor our energy levels and instead become the martyr to our circumstances. I often have conversations with people, and I've been there too, where they are we are martyrs for the people we want to help. For example, we continue to complain that we are exhausted, or we continue to complain that we are taken advantage of, or we complain that nobody wants our help, nobody listens to us. But often that's just a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. Are you listening to yourself? Are you asking the real, truthful, honest questions about why you are in a repetitive relationship that tends to take more than you receive? Why is it that you, or all of us, really are continuing to feel bad for ourselves for circumstances that we can change? Everything is changeable. Anything can be transformed, but often we see it as somebody else has to change. Something outside of us has to change, because the hardest work is to go within and do it ourselves. So, that is going to be really important, and again connects with the spine and working with, if you do have back pain, where is that coming from? Is there any misalignment in your spine, and how can you continue to send healing energy to your spine and make physical external changes in your life, so you no longer feel like the martyr to your circumstances, you no longer feel like a victim. And victim mentality is also coming up during this new moon, because victim mentality is what keeps us in the same cycles. It's what keeps us shackled. It's what does not liberate us, because victim mentality is also, there's a passive victim mentality and then there's an active victim mentality. Passive victim mentality is not doing anything about your circumstances and feeling like you are genuinely a victim to your circumstances. Then there's active victim mentality, where we spend so much time throttling other people, trying to tell them that they need to change, that they need to be somebody that makes us happy, when instead we have to be the person to make ourselves happy. And we have to stop feeling like other people are doing wrong by us, because when somebody does wrong by us, it's because we allowed it. At some point in our relationship with them, we allowed it and we thought we were deserving of that maltreatment. And when that maltreatment happens, the best way to react is to be in a loving and forgiving space. And if we can't be at that time, take time away from that situation and understand how we allowed the behavior. That doesn't mean that we deserved the behavior. That doesn't mean that we are not making the other person accountable for their behavior. But what is it within us that made that person feel like they could do that to us? So this kind of brings us into again, or brings us back to, I should say, emotions and being very emotionally intelligent. So that is a word that's thrown around so much, emotional intelligence. So many books about it, so many talks about it. Emotional intelligence is knowing thyself, knowing ourselves and being honest about ourselves, because sometimes I myself included, we are overly idealistic about what we think we can tolerate, what we think we can handle, which then leads us to being angry or resentful for something that we thought we were okay with. And the more that we take time and go within ourselves and understand, where are some of my own shortcomings, where are some of my own challenges, what can I grow from, and how can I catch myself? Something that I'll share is I have perfectionist tendencies that sometimes I have allowed to get in the way of my life. So, for example, if something is laying a certain way on the table, and it's not laid the way that I wanted it to, I get really overly and actively upset, and I have to change it. And if I don't, it bothers me. And the other day that was there was something in my room that was exactly like that, but I had to do practices within myself and catch myself, like, oh, my tendencies are coming up again. Or sometimes around people, I'm like, I have some tendencies. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to project them onto you, because I know that comes from me feeling like I need to be perfect in order to be loved, in order to be enough. And the more that I heal that, the more that externally it doesn't feel like it controls me as much. So I'm sharing this because maybe this is relatable to you in some way. Maybe there's certain tendencies that you have. Maybe you always need to know. You need to know the future. You need to know A, B, C, D, all the way through Z in order to feel safe, in order to feel like you can enjoy the moment. And you're constantly feeling like you're not present because you're worried about what is coming or what you need to be able to control in your environment. And that's a tendency you have. So then working with it to pull it back and understand how it doesn't have to run your life anymore. So with all of those pieces, there is a lot of strength that can come out of this new moon, a lot of empowerment I see, because knowing ourselves is the most magical experience we can ever have. Knowing who we are and understanding how we contribute to the life that we want, how we manifest our positives and our negatives, is the first step in understanding how to change our life. So, in terms of other parts of the new moon, the Cancer new moon also wants us to indulge in a way, meaning be in a space where we can give ourselves comfort. For example, maybe it's reading a particular book that is just really familiar to you but brings you a lot of joy, or it's watching a movie that makes you laugh, makes you happy, has a happy ending, or it's buying a baked good that you really think is delicious, or making yourself a full comfort meal, or buying a comfort meal, or spending time with people that just make you feel really mushy and happy inside. The Cancer new moon wants us to balance the inner work and external work with also giving ourselves a reprieve and giving ourselves breaks. And that is also what Cancer teaches us, is how to balance between indulgence and dedication slash discipline, because we can have both, but when we go too far on one end of the spectrum or the other, we can tend our we there tends to be costs for that, whether it's physical malnourishment, whether we feel sick, whether we just feel mentally not in a good place. There's always signs. Our body and our mind send us signs as to why, or what I should say, what's not working and why is it not working. For example, there are times, and I'm going to talk about this because this also connects to the Cancer new moon, is the idea of trusting ourselves. When sometimes when we go through hard relationships or hard career points or just an overall challenging part of our life, we tend to feel like we can't trust ourselves with our decisions because we wonder how we got ourselves in that place to begin with. And then that takes us on a journey of trying to understand, how did I get myself here? And how can I never put myself in that position again, while also learning what are my cues of trust. So if you feel like you are overall in a really good mental space and in a good physical space as well, your body feels good, but your mind is still trying to send you insidious or dark or negative thoughts, that is a form of, just one, it can be self-sabotage. Two, it just can be that you are purging those thoughts, and they may be there longer than you think. Whether when you're working with dark negative thoughts, it takes time. It can take years to no longer believe them anymore and to not let them run our lives. So just because they're there doesn't mean you're not doing the work, and just because they're there doesn't mean you can't trust yourself. And trusting ourselves is so intuitive to the Cancer new moon, because trust is all about understanding. It goes back to understanding our truth and our identity and what makes us happy, and knowing and deeply knowing that some what makes somebody else happy isn't what may necessarily make us happy. And once we get that through our brain, once we truly embody that, we can let go of the need for comparison, of the need to constantly feel like we have to go outside of ourselves in order to validate ourselves, and we can be our own form of validation. Also, during this Cancer new moon, I see a lot about romance and what does romance mean to us, and what is our relationship to romance? What is our relationship to having or finding a partner? And when we understand that in order to attract the person that we feel is serving our highest good, we have to be that person ourselves. We have to be like the husband, the wife, the partner, the spouse that we want for ourselves. Because without that, that is, how can we expect that of somebody else? How can we expect them to be so radically different from us if we can't embody that full unconditional love for ourselves? So, in the theme of that, I also see, if you are trying to manifest a partner, there is a lot regarding the idea of manifestation, because the idea of manifestation and the law of attraction is a knowing that it's already there, that it's coming, that it's already here with you. Because when you constantly point out, oh, I wish I could have that, I want that, oh, I'm sad that I don't have that, oh, must be nice, we then are in discordance with what we're trying to attract, because we're too focused on what we don't have. And this goes for anything. This goes for our relationship with ourselves, our career, our wealth, our family harmony, anything really. So when we feel like we already have it, we are speeding up the process of us getting it. So if you are trying to attract a partner, that is something I suggest already feeling like you have them in your life, that you have them in your energy field, and knowing and then working through that, because often when we feel like they're already in our energy field, there will be fears that are triggered within us to work with. For example, do you have a fear of abandonment? Do you have a fear of somebody being unfaithful to you? Do you have a fear of deep disrespect in the relationship? Do you have a fear of the commitment because you feel like your identity will get lost in the sauce? So when we work through those fears, and again, if you're not looking for a partner, this could be like a business partner, this could be a career change, this could be a wealth. When we work through the fears, that's such a good thing, because that needs to happen, because those are showing us the barriers we are putting up to getting exactly what we know we deserve. And if we don't feel like we deserve those things, but we want them, then we work on feeling like we are worthy of them. So I'm gonna end off the new moon. I keep wanting to say full moon, the new moon in Cancer on June 25th at 5:31 a.m. I recommend doing some ceremonies during this time, lighting some candles, doing some journal work, really just digging within. And I hope that this offered some really helpful and vital guidance to you all. And until next time, I really appreciate you.